Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Crunching Your Growth, where we talk a lot about the why behind the buy. But today's guest started with a why that hits closer to home than most. Michael Londo didn't set out to just build a company. He was an engineer trying to solve a problem for his own daughter, and that mission led to the birth of Body Balance System, a powerhouse in the red light therapy and wellness space. Today, they aren't just making gadgets, they're manufacturing FDA-registered medical devices right here in the USA that are changing the game for med spas and wellness centers. Michael, thanks for taking the time and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, my pleasure. Why don't you, take us back and tell us your story a bit about how you got to where you are today?
All the way back?
Yeah, as far back as you want to go.
Okay. Well, quick story. So my daughter was born, basically without the instinct to breathe. So getting her in, after she came home from the hospital, she was in the hospital for about 6 months, but getting her out of the house required her and roughly about 100 pounds worth of equipment. So we would buy twin strollers. They wouldn't last. They would fall apart. Couldn't handle all the weight. So I developed my own cart to get her and all of her equipment around. Um, taking that to doctors' offices and hospitals, I kept getting, oh my gosh, you got to make those. And kind of bam, that's a few years later, I set out and I started, building a business for that. I had met a gentleman. He introduced me to a guy that was going to come in and help me with sales. And, um, but just as I was getting the company going, went through a divorce, and my divorce attorney said, just close the business. It's not worth anything at the moment, and you can open it up later. That way, we're not fighting over it. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. A few years later, the guy that was going to help me with sales contacted me and was like, he had cancer. He was battling it naturally. And, said, "Hey, I'm using this ionic detox foot bath in my treatment." He goes, "You need to look at this thing and make it because I know you like developing stuff." So he brought it over, let me look at it, and I kind of reversed engineered it and, made it what I thought would be better. And that was kind of the birth of the business in 2004. In 2005, I was basically just selling them on eBay. Probably by the end of Q3, I was like, maybe there's a business in this, an actual business. So I made a website, and it was ugly and crude, but it worked.
Yeah.
In 2006, we just literally exploded. We hit the market the right time, the right price, and things were great. So the first few years were literally just trying to keep up with sale or keep up with the sales and production. Then we got into when around '09, when the banks were crashing and all that good stuff was happening. I discovered that, we started developing new products. And because our customers liked us and believed in our products, they would, buy these new products. So that kind of helped keep things going in the rough times. And then in probably around 2013, a client called me to order some stuff for her detox foot bath. And, she said, "Have you heard about this red light therapy?" I'm like, "No, I haven't." So I looked it up and we got into it. There's maybe less than a handful of manufacturers at the time. Um, and we developed a pad system. It was very crude, but it worked great.
Yeah.
And we just continued to improve it from there. Um, after a few, After about 3, 4 years of building those, reliability was an issue because you had an electronic device that you're wrapping around the body, laying on it, and all of that all day long. So reliability was a bit of an issue. So that's kind of when I decided I want to develop this into like a bed form. And so that's kind of how we got to the point where we're at now. We're basically on about our third generation of bed design. And yeah, so we're FDA registered. We have our NRTL certification, which is like if you've ever seen a product on the back of it, it says "You Well." That's what that means. UL is just a company that does that. We use a company called SGS, but there's only about a dozen companies that are authorized to hand out these certifications. So we achieved that, and then um, 2 Fridays ago, I believe it was, we finally submitted for FDA clearance. Even though we're exempt from clearance, we were kind of like, we've come this far, we've done everything for all of this. Why not spend the extra money and go for FDA cleared? So that's kind of where we're at the moment. And that's kind of where we got, how we got here.
Yeah, that's a great story. What does the FDA clearance do for you? Is that just for marketing purposes or for giving confidence to the buyer?
Yeah, more confidence for the buyer, marketing, a little bit of that. It was just like I said, we've had to do so much in for all of our compliance that we have to adhere to. There really wasn't much more we needed to do to get clearance. So there aren't very many cleared beds on the market. There's a lot of beds that kind of make you feel like they're cleared, but when you really press them for their K number or their FDA clearance number, you don't hear from them anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so, they'll use terms like FDA cleared technology or FDA approved, which FDA approved is not a correct term in this world. Um, so just there's a lot of BS in the market, really. I mean, the red light therapy market has kind of become the wild, wild west.
Yeah. Who's your primary customer? Is it individuals or is it more like tanning salons or salons in general or
So yeah, tanning salons are a market for us. Chiropractors, wellness spas, longevity centers, anything like that. The wellness industry is just absolutely exploding. It's supposed to grow by like about 35% a year for at least the next 5 years. And it's really taken off. So, yeah.
but do individuals buy them for their
Oh,
homes?
yes. Sorry. We've sold a few for home use. Correct.
They have, huh? So can you explain red light therapy a little bit? Because I'm not so sure that everybody is familiar with it.
So, red light therapy was actually developed by NASA. They used it on the astronauts. It was for pain relief and muscle recovery. Um, so that's kind of how it got established. And then probably around 15 years ago, it kind of started hitting in the commercial market. And just in the last couple years has just absolutely exploded. A lot of, China got a hold of it, and, most of the beds in the market, are either made in China or all of their parts are made in China and assembled in the US. But yeah, red light therapy it's an amazing product. It does a lot of amazing things for people.
But you're manufacturing in the US
Ours are right here in Las Vegas in this facility,
from start to finish.
start to finish. So we have a few components that are done by local vendors for us. Our frames are, because they're all steel and that. So those are laser cut and bent and powder coated by somebody else for us. Um, we just hired a company to make our crates for us, and we just hired another company to cut out our tops for the part that you lay on the bed. And we have another company that in California that makes our canopy top, and another company here locally that does the thermal forming for our clear covers for the canopies. So, but everything is done in the US.
The actual red light therapy portion is done here. It's done by
Correct.
you.
Everything is final assembled right here.
Yeah. And I mean, is there a benefit to that? Or is because I know I was talking to someone who does cold plunge therapy, uh, whatever you call them, beds, but they're tanks, right? Cold therapy tanks. And he was saying that the ones that come from overseas are just not good. They don't really do what they're supposed to do. And is it the same in yours? Because there's a lot of uh, um, you know garbage out there. Whenever you I
There
mean, even the
is.
GLP-1s today, right? There was a whole thing that just came out from the government. They shut down two websites that were from overseas websites selling fake GLP-1 products, and they were garbage. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And the things that we've, seen about the stuff coming out of China, they'll put like labels that they're approved for everything under the sun. But when you really get down to it and start researching them or asking them for like their clearance numbers or things like that, they won't respond to you anymore. So
yeah.
I just reached out to a company that we're up against for a franchise, and they advertise right on their site they're FDA cleared. Their first response to me was, "Well, what exactly are you looking for clearance for? Because it's not clearance isn't on a whole product." And I didn't say it, but technically, yes, it is. The clearance is for the product, not what it's doing. So, and then then I kind of quite quizzed them on that, and I said, "No, that's not correct. It would be the whole product," and they've never responded. But yeah, the China stuff, they do that. And kind of the biggest thing in the industry is, so like, let's say you went and bought a new Porsche and they told you the car has 500 horsepower. You get it home and you put it on a dyno, and it only dynos at 25 horsepower. Um, but most people don't have a dyno at home, so they can't
Right.
test it. It's kind of the same thing that's happening in red light right now. The measurement is called milliwatts centimeter squared. And as per FDA, that measurement is supposed to be taken right on top of the clear plastic where the body is in contact. That is the where it is supposed to be measured, and that's what you can market what your output is. So our output is 68 milliwatt centimeter squared measured on top of the clear. Um, Research shows you should be between 30 and 100, so we're right in there. But what we've discovered is we have a lot of our competitors are marketing that they're 100, 125, 150. There's one that actually advertises that they're 950. That would burn people. So we can start burning people around 95 to 100 if they're very fair complected. It'll just leave little red dots on their back. So that's kind of why we've taken it down to 68. We've found is our sweet spot for our product. But what we've discovered on with most of these products is the other thing, well, I'm going to back up. The other thing with red light therapy is the light comes out of the LED diode at a beam angle. So, those beam angles range between 60 and 120. Um, Ours are 120. Most of them on the market are 120. But what happens is when that light comes out, it dissipates incredibly fast. Like within 1 inch, you can lose 80% of the strength of light in 1 inch. So that's why our bed is designed that you're basically laying on top of all of the diodes separated by 1/16 inch piece of clear plastic. Actually, it's called polycarbonate. Um, so you're basically just, you're separated from the light, the diode by 1/16 of an inch. So we can get, a really full strength of light. So the problem is with most other units is even on the part that you're laying on, there's still like a 2 or 3 inch separation between the diode and the body after it goes through the plastic. And then like all these coffin designs or tanning bed designs out there, there's anywhere from, 6 to 12 inch gap between the light source and the body. So what's getting to the body is minimal. It's really not much at all.
So, from a marketing perspective, how do you get that? How do you get that differentiation point across?
Um, we've been trying really hard, but it's hard to get that message across to people. I think they just look at it as, hey, my skin's all red from the light. It's got to be working, but it doesn't. So we actually had Damon John from Shark Tank in here, which we just signed a contract with him a couple weeks ago. He's going to help. He wants to help blow us up as a company. But he came in, and he had a competitor bed that he was sold to him through Gary Brecka, and I showed him, you know, okay, here's what's going on in red light. And I said, and I love doing this when people come here to check us out. I have a little setup downstairs, and I'll show them. I take the meter and I'll put it right on a diode, and they can see, okay, that's how high it is, with no plastic. Then I'll put the plastic on, and they can see how much it drops just going through a 16th inch of plastic. It drops quite a bit. Then I'll put in like an eighth of an inch thick piece of plastic, which, some of our competitors are using, and it drops even more. But then I showed him, then I like to have these little wooden blocks that are inch by inch. And I said, okay, now watch what happens when I move it an inch away. And he saw it right there with his own eyes go from, 68 to like 10. And he just, hit me on the shoulder. He's like, I had no idea it did that. I'm like, I know nobody does. Very few people, and companies don't talk about it. There's a few companies now that are starting to talk about it and that have a good product. That's not many, but there's a maybe two, maybe three other products on the market that I would consider, they're owned by legitimate people that are like us that want to do the right thing and sell a product that they know is a good product.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, most of it's not out there.
So do you think that that's a obstacle to scaling further? Because when you have enough, I think, negative press about companies that are doing it wrong, it tends to permeate the industry and in its
Correct.
entirety.
Yeah, it does, and that's a concern. There's actually a number of lawsuits that are going against some of the competitors, basically for lying to their clients about their outputs. So that is kind of another reason. Like on our website, we have links right to our FDA registration, so they can click on it, takes them to the FDA website, and they can see that we're actually listed as a manufacturer on the FDA website. It'll take them to our NRTL certification page. They can see that's legitimate, um, which not many companies. I don't know of any companies that have that information right on their website. We also will tell people anytime you want to do like a video call, we'll walk you through the factory so you can see that they're actually built right here. But it is a huge obstacle right now. And that is a concern that people are going to like, well, how do we know yours is really what you say it is when everybody else is lying?
Right.
So it's a real thing.
Yeah. How do you plan on differentiating yourself from that? Just with information or
Yeah, information. We've been making videos. We're trying to educate, um, you know, people researching and, looking for red light therapy. We're trying to educate, and we have a number of videos where we show measuring. We're actually, um, I actually made this is folded up. It all opens up into a box. And basically, I think this is probably the best way to show people how good a bed is. There's a lot of people, I can take the meter and make videos of me using the meter on a bed, and people just don't understand that. So with this, I can take my cell phone, set it on the top, and there's two holes in the bottom of it. So I position it over diodes in a bed, and I put my fingers over the diodes. So with our bed, it's like my fingernails just, there's so much light going into my fingers, you can't really make out my fingernails anymore. We've done two competitor beds. There's still some red light that comes through, but my fingernails don't look any different, except there's a little bit of red glow inside the little box. So we've kind of taken that on as probably the best way to show people, okay, if your bed this other competitor bed that you're looking at is supposed to be so good, why is it not penetrating my fingers? So that's kind of our next big way, thing that we're going to use as a tool to get that point across.
yeah. Still a little difficult though, right? Because you still have a lot of suspect. I would think a lot of people out there saying,
Yes.
with suspicion. But I guess if your primary market, I mean, is your primary market people buy, companies that have multi-unit, say, spas and wellness spas and things like that. Is that your primary market? Somebody like that that's buying maybe 10 beds or 15 beds at a time?
Sure, that's an ideal client.
Oh,
Absolutely. We've kind of, one thing I've noticed is just because we are so focused on selling a good product and our product does what we say that it does, the outputs are what we say that it is, and that's all been verified by a third party. Um, but no, I forgot my point. What was your question?
no, I was saying that yeah, I was asking if the market is mostly people buying multiple beds, like if their
Oh, yeah,
business is buying multiple beds, because then you're in a different sort of selling scenario as opposed to selling to an individual. Selling to an individual with a product like this, yeah, you probably have to do a lot of, hand holding and explaining.
correct,
When you've got somebody who knows the business, knows what they want, and maybe has done some research, it might be a little bit of an easier obstacle to get over when you can say, hey, come to Las Vegas. I'll walk you through the place and,
correct. Yeah, so probably, I don't know, maybe 70% of our business right now, our sales are just like a single unit at a time. But then we do have a lot of repeat sales. Somebody will buy a bed, within months to a year, maybe longer. They're so busy with that one bed, they need a second bed. But I really feel because of our design and our integrity of the product, we are really starting to get some traction in big names. So, here in Vegas, we're in Aria, we're in Bellagio, we're in negotiations with probably 5 or 6 other, casino spas, in Vegas. We're in Ritz Carlton Four Seasons. We're in Canyon Ranch Spas, which is a very exclusive spa throughout the country. Um, I probably shouldn't say the names. We have some very major corporate hotels that are now looking at using us in like all of their residence locations. Unfortunately, that process is very slow.
very slow.
And then we have a number of larger franchises that are now looking at us. It is the one thing that I think people are starting to learn in the industry, that the closeness of the diode is important. So we were recently at a show about a month and a half ago, the ice spa show, and then the week right after at the am spa show, and we picked up probably 3 or 4 major large um uh corporations, because those people actually did know about the closeness and they liked our bed because they could see that you were as close as possible to the body. One other thing about our bed is we have a vibrational massage built into it. So it creates more of a experience for the user, rather than just sitting, in a red light bed, because you don't really get much of an experience laying there.
How long are they in there for?
Anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes.
Oh, so it's like tanning.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the same amount of time as tanning. It's the same process, right? They're laying down in sort of a bed, the top comes down on them.
correct. So, and that's what we say. Most of the beds, there's one bed they copied our design, but other than that, pretty much all the beds on the market are kind of that clamshell tanning bed design, which is great for tanning, but terrible for red light
Oh,
because it creates too much gap. Um, so that's the thing about our bed is, yes, you're laying basically right on the diodes, and then the canopy comes down and is laying right on top of the front of your body.
so
So
your head is outside of it.
your head is still under it, but there's a little bit more gap over your face.
I
We
gotcha.
have, just simply because our one of our concerns was when we were developing this bed design was people who are claustrophobic.
Yeah,
So we hear of a lot of people that
that's
get
the first thing I thought of.
yeah, they get very claustrophobic in these clamshell designs because they come down and you feel like you're in an MRI.
Yeah, yeah.
And so ours is designed so it's open on the sides of your head. so you can, you just, it doesn't give you that claustrophobic, feeling. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
as far as, probably the 10 years we've been building this bed, I've never heard of anybody complaining about feeling claustrophobic in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Unfortunately, we're a little bit we're almost out of time. So where can people get in touch with you? Where can people see your product? What's the website? How can they take a view and learn a little bit more?
Our website is bodybalancesystem.com. And actually, on the very bottom of the website, there's a little tab that says therapy locator, and they can type in, their zip code that will tell them a bed that's closest to their area that they could go try out. And then obviously our phone number's on top of the web page if they needed to call and talk to us.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, and what I love about the story is, you took it from a sort of a specialized solution to a scalable FDA compliant business, as compliant as you can be with the FDA, and I guess I'm sure it's helping grow your revenue. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah, so yeah, I think it's great. And again, thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
My pleasure. And until next time, guys, we'll see you again.